Raven. All right, so I'm on my PS4 because my Windows is updating. So I was hoping to do my stream on my PC, but I have a big update patch. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get that. It's already downloaded, but it's installing. So I was like, oh, I'll just jump on the PlayStation, but my controller isn't completely charged because I forgot to charge my controller. So I think I have like two, maybe one bars. But today I didn't get on last night. I had real life things, real life stuff to attend to majority of the day yesterday. Um, so I missed out on a lot of opportunity, but that's life, it happens. But so today I'm going to be working towards those last few wins I need to get my achievement for my PvP, and hopefully I'll be done with that for the most part. So I don't, I I don't know what to anticipate with Shadowbringers in the PvP. PvE, I'm more than happy with. I have 7 wins to go, so I'm more than happy with just getting a couple more wins, kind of being done. Let me check out the comment. Yo, Irish, what's up, brother? Hello from work. I'm busy as fuck, but I'm listening. Sounds good, brother. Sounds good. So one of my concerns, and I want to discuss this today. One of my concerns is the PvP and the new battle system. So we're already aware there's a lot of changes coming up in Final Fantasy XIV. And from a PvE perspective, I'm really happy. I'm a little apprehensive about the MP cap due to the casters. They did say Piete for healers is going to, contribute towards regeneration. And I understand that black mages have, in their kit the ability to regen magicka, but will it affect the rotation? These are my concerns. MP cap, is it going to affect black mage rotation? Is it going to affect healing? You know, how much healing you can do, in clutch moments. These are all concerns of mine. I don't know. I can't even speculate. But I'm just a little apprehensive. I'm not nervous in a bad way. I'm just kind of like, I hope this gets addressed initially and where they don't have to mess with it too much after launch. Because I know they can make the adjustments. So I'm not worried about them not making adjustments. My only concern is from launch perspective. Now, from PvP, since healers are being more defined in their role, and from a PvE perspective, I understand this completely, because healers in Final Fantasy XIV have forgotten their role, and that's to heal. They're trying to DPS too much, and their DPS is ineffective in comparison to DPS role. So, because they've been, conditioned to do so, and unfortunately, that puts a lot of stress on the team trying to prevent deaths initially. So, because they've been, just like, oh, okay, I have swift cast, instant res, over res, or whatever. So it's like, we don't care about the deaths, we care about the damage, we'll res them as we go. So that's going to be changing with Shadowbringers. Shadowbringers is going to be like, okay, healing's priority for a healer, and if somebody drops, resing's not going to be as easy, so you have to be on top of your game, which I appreciate from a PvE standpoint. I do. I appreciate it. But from a PvP perspective, it puts me in a little like, oh shit, because now the healers are going to be more effective in their roles in PvP. So I'm like, and in PvP, they're already gods. But at the same time, will that make them less effective as far as like damaging and stuff? I don't know. Will the MP cap affect them in PvP where they can bottom out and now they're more killable? I don't know. So I thought for myself, okay, so if they're more defined as healers, which is fine, is it manageable now to, whittle them down? without dying to getting Verstone and Arrow, and then just resing like a, healing like a god, and you have no chance. I'm hoping maybe this is the case for PvP, and if this is the case for PvP, it'll at least balance out that equation. Because DPS has a problem with what? Sustaining against the healer. That's the problem. That is the problem. Healers will win, hands down, because they have damaging abilities. And because they have so much MP, they can just go on forever until you just die. So, I'm kind of looking at things from a perspective to say, oh, okay, well, we don't know yet. And I'm keeping my hopes up, man, in one way or the other, because the PvP isn't bad. It's just the way it is. It's lopsided. It's so lopsided that you're like, oh my god, it's just god awful. So, yeah. So I'm hoping. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I have no problem with Frontlines. I have no problem with Rival Wings. And I certainly don't have a problem with the Feast. Because the Feast is an E-Games. It does have a presence. It's not my cup of tea because of the way it's strategized. But I understand it. And I appreciate it. And I pay homage to it. Because, hey, man, whatever. Now, PvE, I think everything's going to be good. Everything, I like the fact that the tanks have been announced that they can do MT or OT. I'm a little worried about tank swapping in certain conditions. If we're going to have to drop our initial tank stance. So we're not going to be stance dancing like I do with, DK. I drop grit, I leave grit up, I drop it, for damage modifiers. Same thing like you have with the Paladin, your different shield stance. With the Warrior, your battle stances. There's a lot of stance dancing as tanks to try to maximize the DPS rotation. So I'm glad that all of these things have been addressed. All tanks now are viable. So it's no longer it's going to be about player preference with job. And I like that. I really do. Healers, I feel like we're going to see, because of their announcement that healers are going to be more defined in healing, Scholar DPS is going to either go completely bye-bye or be so reduced that you're not going to want to heal as a or damage as a Scholar. It'll be almost pointless. So I feel like Scholar is going to get some of the biggest adjustments to its job in its current state, from its current state. White Mage, though, that pumps up the White Mage's, role and progression. So we will see White Mage, maybe adapt to the meta a little bit more. We'll see where, Square Enix is saying we're trying to utilize where it's more player preference and not restricted based on. But the problem with the White Mage has always been one thing. It's a giant burst healer with no utility. And I love the White Mage because of its insane amount of healing capability. But it also suffers because of the heavy cost associated with the bigger heals. So it's like, okay, well, Astrologian, I think, is still going to be that nice support. And we know that Scholar is going to be that shield. And hopefully White Mage gets the love it deserves. But the support DPS jobs is going to be a lot of the dictating factors. So I don't feel like the DPS is the selfish DPS, though I feel Machinist is going to make its appearance more in progression. I feel Machinist is going to be an option now more for players, and the Monk. So we're going to see the two jobs that a lot of players, were kind of like, meh, steered away from, to being like, you know what, I want to play the Monk. I want to play the Machinist. And now they're going to have those opportunities. And I'm really grateful for that. But the support DPS is where it's all going to come down to. It's going to come down to, the jobs like the Ninja. It's going to come down to the jobs like Dancer. It's going to come to jobs to the Dragoon and the Bard. Those are, you know, 4 really strong support DPS classes. And they're all physical, keep in mind. Which I would like to see, even though the Red Mage is considered a support DPS, it utilizes more towards, you know, rezzing and, you know, healing and those type of factors. Same thing with the Summoner. I feel the Summoner is going to be the MSQ class to go to. Instant, you know, pet swapping, no damage to pets. I'm a little worried about the Titan Eggy. That's a big concern of mine, Titan Eggy. How the damage is going to be applied. If it's going to be applied to, or if there isn't going to be any damage. Because if there's no damage applied to Titan Eggy, like, I can honestly tell you, it's going to be OP as hell. It's going to be completely OP, especially for progression, like not progression, but MSQ and solo content. It's going to be like the OP job. So, and you know, some people might not like my perspective, but I'm just giving it from what I'm reading from the initial, you know, producer letter and what I've experienced thus far in those jobs. Now, keep in mind, I'm still leveling a lot of jobs. I'm relatively new to the Final Fantasy game. I'm really happy for Square Enix. Square Enix is looking really strong in 2019. Their sub count has gone up, you know, considerably, given all the other factors surrounding the MMO market. I know a lot of people feel like the MMO genre is dying, but I would have to disagree in the conception of long-term revenue and player count. See, the thing about it is MMOs are built to last for a extensive amount of time, and a lot of games can drop the ball. But what an MMO does for a company is it has a heavy investment initially with long-term gain, right? Substantially longer-term game. Take a game for Final Fantasy XIV. It's been in the market for 10 years. It's been in the market for a decade now, and it's even still going strong. World of Warcraft, 14 years. We have games like AOC, even though the population has dwindled, it's still being operated. And what applies to the MMO genre is players with a single-player focused game or even a multiplayer game becomes a little, you know, bland at the time, or where there's no continued content. They try to do it within the DLCs or the season packs, but sooner or later the players will kind of dwindle out, and guess what they do? They look for a new game. That's what keeps that market going, is what? Short-term, like, production doesn't take as long. It's cut down by, let's say, 2 years. So typically in an MMORPG, you see a 5-year, you know, development with an X amount of staff. And then single player games, you see typically a 3-year, should be at least a 3, no more than a 4-year production plan. And what they do is they keep it cycled. It's titled. Like, you know, you have your Tomb Raiders, you have your Call of Duties, you have your Halo series. You have all of these games that keep being produced in short term. Why? To keep the money coming. Or they'll do DLC updates in between new releases. And that's good for short-term products. But MMOs, once again, are built long-term, and one of the things that a lot of players keep going back to the MMOs is very relevant because it's long-term. A player can leave an MMO for 4-6 months, play other games, and guess what they do? When an expansion is announced, they come running back. They play that game, whether it's sub-based, free-to-play, whatever. They will play it for X amount of months, buy the DLCs, buy the expansion, and they will play through that content, and that keeps this market relative. Now, I do feel the PvP elements in the MMOs have started to dwindle due to the market trend, but hopefully in the near future that will change. But as far as the online experience that MMOs have, they brought it. it isn't the first-person shooter games that brought the multiplayer experience. It's the MMOs. It's not the racing games that brought the multiplayer experience. It's the MMOs. So is the MMO genre dying? No, it's adapting. It's completely adapting. And now with stream services being, the future of gaming, we're going to see the trend continue, except the way the delivery and the services are provided. So that's what's happening. And I keep telling people, like, you don't understand the MMO genre. Everything's becoming an MMO now. Any game, like, even if you don't want to think of it as an MMO, a lot of MMO, effects are put into play. And, once again, I mean, to each their own, but... All right. Now, I think... I was hoping I would get a faster queue. And I'm really happy how well they have the benchmark out for the PC players. So I really look for the PS4 Pro to do really well. I also think PS5 is going to do extremely well with Shadowbringers next year. And I feel like the standard PS4 will do good, but if you have a Pro, you're sitting pretty for Shadowbringers. You're going to be sitting very pretty. You're not going to have to worry about anything if you're rocking a Pro. But if the PS5, I'm banking up for the PS5. Unless Microsoft announces the release of Shadowbringers. If Square Enix and Microsoft announce that Shadowbringers is coming to the Xbox, I'm going to have a hard time choosing between the PS5 and the new Xbox. So it's going to be one of the hardest factors for me personally. I'm always playing around here. Alright, if this doesn't queue up in 5 minutes, I might actually call the stream and just do whatever. But I wanted to get on and talk about a couple of these concerns and what's going on. Like I said, E3, June 11th. It's the event to watch this year. Out of everything that's been going on in the industry news, I mean, you can pretty much lay all the YouTubers out. And am I taking a little pride in certain things? Absolutely. Because I feel a lot of the mainstream people missed the golden opportunities presented of what's happening in the trend. Like, they're keeping up with the news as it's being released, but they're not actually calling it out ahead of time or, trying to foreshadow what's happening in the industry. And that's a problem. That's the problem with, I feel, a lot of the content creators who do news-related content. It's like you're reporting what's happening, which is good, but at the same time, you're missing what is evolving from all of this. And the pros and the cons, the ups and downs, and how it's affecting the future of gaming. Because that's what we're taking a look at. We're taking a look at the new gen coming up. I mean, by next year, everything's changing dramatically with hardware. And now when we take a look at accessibility, it's going to be a whole new game. When I had my meeting, and I did have a meeting with some local, if they like to call themselves businessmen, I personally don't consider them businessmen because they don't really understand business. They understand what they're in, and not what's going on from a economic standpoint or a bigger picture. And to me, a businessman understands multiple things associated with business and how it, works together. It's like, from manufacturing to distributing, right? All of these things, a very smart businessman is going to, or businesswoman or business person, being politically correct, because there are a lot of business women out there who are very in tuned with their profession, what they do. So I just want to state that for the record. But a business person is going to look at multiple things affecting market. You just can't associate one element of business and write off the rest. It doesn't work like that. Let's take a look at retail, for example. Retail has dramatically changed in the last 10 years. How we purchase our wares or our goods. And everything's accessibility through Amazon or online purchases has now a virtual economy associated within its own. So when we talk about economics, we're talking about, direct economic influences from either from a macro or, a trade position, but we're not associating virtual economy, and virtual economy kind of tears down the walls associated with typical macro economics. Well, from a micro position too, that extends what? Your labor and your workforce and all of these elements. We can pull more resources. Why? Because we have online services like Indeed and other work-related websites that we can obtain talent. Now we also have other ways to market our wares online. We have other ways to negotiate through online virtual economy. And one of the things about economists these days, they're completely keeping in what they've been taught and not adapting to what? The current state of economics. And to me, that's like, you guys are missing every point of what it means to be an economist, of everything associated, of all of these new tax laws that have to be implemented. Also we have to take a look at how international trade is associated for virtual products. Because now virtual products are more real. It's more noticeable. And we have products that aren't being taxed appropriately due to what? Lack of tax laws associated. And now we have even federal laws that have to be influenced in that association as well, whether it be through direct goods or virtual goods, like what? Loot boxes and microtransactions and state taxes. All of these things are effective. It's the way of the world. And I just find it hilarious that a lot of business owners aren't adapting. Because when you meet individuals who are what I like to call inheritance, they're starting to drop. They're starting to dwindle. I told my daughter a couple days ago, oh my God, it's taking so long. I told my daughter a couple days ago, in 10 years, fast food chains and how they operate are going to change dramatically. Because she's a manager at a fast food restaurant. And she's like, well, how do you figure? And I'm like, she's like, everybody eats. And I'm like, I'm not dismissing what the service provides, but how the operation is established has to adapt because of inflation, right? The inflated value at which operations is currently being businesses are currently operating are going to bump into a wall, right? Because of the law of diminishing returns. And that's unfortunate. So we're going to see a lot of franchise owners not being able to keep up with the demands, and we're already starting to see the transition to what corporate infrastructure. So, it's the people who made their little money making off of like these type of pyramid, like very profitable pyramid elements, and made millions. That's going to be adapting. It's going to be changing. You're going to see these inheritance completely falling through within the next decade, and because of the law of diminishing returns and inflation. It's just the way it is. And maybe I'm calling it. I remember when I was 19 and I called the housing crisis before it hit. And a lot of my colleagues thought, I was being pessimistic. And they were like, oh, you're being pessimistic. And I'm like, we're overinflating the market. We have houses that are 100 years old that are somehow still valued within 5 to 10,000 of newer homes production with the same square footage. That doesn't make sense. So if the housing market is inflated as well as it is, when we hit a recession, we're going to lose out on what? The older homes, because they're overpriced. Our investment is going to lose. We're going to lose on that equity loans. And of course, my colleagues dismissed me, and I was like, okay, fine, whatever. I don't give a shit. And next thing you know, boom, with the whole thing with Freddie Mac, Fannie Mac, Citi, all of these things started happening, and I was just like sitting there. Now at this time, I had just left the company, and I put my hands on my waist and be like, I don't understand why people can't see the numbers for what they are. You can't dispute math. You can't. It's if it's present and it's there, it's relative. And I feel like that's why I enjoy MMO so much. I can take a look at numbers and associate certainty. You can associate certainty with numbers. And I think that's kind of why I've always been... Plus, I like RPGs. I'm a fantasy geek. So 27 minutes, man. I've been on here almost a half an hour talking my ears off, talking everybody's heads off, but whatever. And I know a lot of people don't like me because they're like, oh, you're arrogant, you're a bastard. But I'm like, hey, look, I'm just calling it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. At E3, if Microsoft and Square Enix does not announce this merger or this accessibility to Final Fantasy XIV to this platform, I will be the first to say I'm wrong. I will be the first to admit this. But I've said if this merger was to happen, this announcement is going to be at E3. It's going to be. Microsoft can't afford, right, not to make this deal happen. It wants to provide services in the future. It's made the deal with Nintendo. It wants to be able to provide services on multiple platforms. Why? Because that's where the money is. I wouldn't be surprised that, once again, it's been speculated this could be the last gen upcoming. This could be the last generation for consoles. I disagree to an extent. We're always going to need a hardware device, and even if stream services become the norm or the main way that gamers have that experience or purchase their products or game, you're going to need a device to connect to your home. Now, mobile is not going anywhere, unfortunately. But I feel like the accessibility from mobile to home entertainment is going to be huge. Microsoft knows this, and Microsoft's like, we don't care about hardware in the future. We care about what? Extending our service through any any entertainment choice. So whether if they're going from a mobile device and they go home, let's hypothetically say we have in 20 years, we have new mobile devices that can literally be played anywhere, and then when you go home, you can literally throw it up, plug it in, and throw it up on a bigger monitor and extend your gameplay from there. Imagine Wi-Fi. Okay, this is what I'm going to try to tell you guys. Picture this. Wi-Fi graphic integration. So basically, imagine, your television, your smart TV, how you can literally connect your YouTube feed from your phone to your television, but imagine doing that in gaming. Imagine going from a small screen to a large screen, just with the push of a button. Microsoft understands this more than most. So it's like there's always going to be hardware out there, but whoever is going to be influencing services is going to have their foot in the door. This is why Google's pushing. And what's Xbox trying to do? Beat Google to the punchline. Because whoever's got initial hold of the market is going to be the dominant factor. It's going to be the dominant factor. So, maybe I'm wrong. I could be. Maybe I'm not seeing it. I doubt it. But we'll see. We shall see. Anyways, I'm going to call this stream. I've been in here 30 minutes waiting. It is the morning, so when I saw the first 5-minute queue, I was pumped. I was like, yeah, sweet. But it's going to be one of those days until prime time hits, and that's to be anticipated. Anyways, man, I'm going to let you guys go. Food for thought. A lot of things coming in with Shadowbringers. Once again, I just feel like 2019 is Square Enix year. I feel E3, June 11th, is going to be a big deal for Microsoft and Square Enix. Even though Bethesda is going to make an appearance, I don't look for Bethesda to really shake anything up. We already know that E6 is going to be coming out, but unfortunately they did state that they were going to keep with the creation engine. And the only thing I look for is Bethesda to announce that it's going to have limited, if no, and then when I mean limited multiplayer capability with E6. Not Skyrim, E6. Why? Because of the Fallout disaster. They want to capitalize on microtransactions, and I think that's going to be a good thing. So we're going to see that. Oh, cool. We're going to see that with E6. So we will be able to have some multiplayer elements apply to E6. Don't get me wrong. But given the fact that we had a lot of issues with Fallout 76, we can associate that we're still going to have a lot of that problems with in more open world interactions if they were trying to go in that direction with E6. So I feel like they're going to make an adjustment to say, okay, we want multiplayer, but we're going to go ahead and streamline it a little bit better, have it more controlled where there's only X amount of, capability, so we can still, bank off microtransactions. So once again, these are just things that I'm kind of anticipating Bethesda to do because they can't afford E6 to drop. If E6 fails like Fallout 76, Bethesda's got bigger issues. Jump around. I like that name. Guys, gotta focus that damn healer. Got him. Victory. We got it. 2 kills, 175 medals. Sweet. 6 more to go. It's good. It's good. We got it. PvP in this game isn't bad. I'm not going to say the PvP in this game is bad. I'm just saying it's so one-sided. It's all one strategy. And that's what my problem is with it. It's not the combat. It's not the objectives. It's literally, it's either take the healer out or lose. That's it. And that's my problem. It's like, you know, and I think that's why I like Rival Wings probably the best. Though, yeah, depending on what you're doing in Rival Wings, you might not see as much action, or it all depends. But Rival Wings definitely, you know, has a nice, objective element and strategy to how you're going to be important to your team. So I kind of like Rival Wings in the element of Final Fantasy XIV because of the way, you know, the jobs are designed. I like what the feast does, but like I said, the strategy behind the feast is my only problem. It's so one-sided. So leave it at that. So, you know, my opinion, you know, take it with a grain of salt. You know, take it for what it is. You might not agree. That's fine. You're entitled to your own opinion. I'm just stating why what I'm seeing the problem is and why a lot of people aren't getting into the PvP. And I really hope they introduce a multi-queue system in the future for the PvP system. You know, that would be really good. It would speed things up and try to incentivize PvP in the future. So we'll see. We'll see. Anyways, guys, I'm going to let you guys go. We'll see what happens. You know, we'll see. There's a lot of things that are going to happen at E3. It's right around the corner, as well as the release of Shadowbringers. I'm pumped. I hope you are as well. Once again, I'm Mystic Raven. This is Mystics MMOs. As always, thank you. And have a nice day.